Hello, Klemen here. I'm the co-founder of QVida and welcome in this video training where you will learn how to scale your business to 7 figures and beyond. Specifically, you will learn about 2 core growth engines or scaling engines that once you put them into place and get them up and running well enough, you will put yourself and your business on a fast track not only to a 7-figure business where your business generates at least $1 million a year, but also on a fast track towards an 8-figure business. This is very powerful, very insightful, and to give you some context, we almost perfected, I will not say perfected because I'm staying humble, but we almost perfected these same 2 growth engines at my times at Mindvalley. So in case you don't know, I was a chief marketing officer and head of growth at mindvalley.com, which I'm sure you know, this fascinating, amazing company. And we use the same 2 growth engines to scale Mindvalley to what it is today, the world's #1 and the most fascinating online company and university for everything personal growth and transformation. And what's even more interesting, is that I used the same 2 growth engines to scale Solvana.com into a 7-figure business in less than 3 years. And this is, in case you don't know, Solvana.com is, or at least was, a company that I co-founded together with my dear friend Vishen Lakiani, co-founder and CEO of Mindvalley. So if you want to gradually, consistently, predictably, and also very important, profitably grow your business to 7 figures and beyond, and along the way positively impact more human lives, touch more human beings, and share your message and elevate your brand, this video is for you, okay? So what I have here is my fancy iPad, and I will do some drawings. Now, very important disclaimer, I have many talents, but drawing and artistic self-expression is not necessarily one of them, okay? So, but I will do my best, okay? So you can imagine these 2 growth engines I will draw here, these 2 growth engines almost as 2 growth engines, 2 engines on an airplane. So obviously, if you have no engines running on an airplane, then the airplane cannot even take off. And worse, if you already are somewhere flying and the engines go off, well, you know what happens with the airplane. It slowly, I would say, mildly say, goes down, okay? Now, if you have only one of these 2 engines running, well, eventually you run into trouble. First of all, it's very difficult to take off. The airplane has a difficulty taking off with only one engine running. And then if you're already flying somewhere and one engine breaks and you have only one running, well, eventually you get into trouble. It's not pleasant up there in the air, only with one engine. But when you have both of these 2 engines up and running well enough, they don't have to run at 100%, but they're running well enough simultaneously in parallel mode at the same time. This is where magic happens. This is where your business starts to grow and expand and reach more people and attract more customers and help more human beings transform in a predictable, consistent, and also very important, profitable way. Very important. So let's cover what these 2 engines first are. So the first growth engine that you want to start with, in 99% cases, if you already have something going on with your business, is the launch growth engine, okay? Now, before we go into the other one, let's go deeper into this launch engine. This is where you typically want to start. Launch growth engine is primarily designed and created with an objective to monetize your existing warm audiences, specifically your email list and your social media followers. You will see in just a bit why this engine is so important, equally important as the other one, but this is the one you want to start with. And by the way, this is also the growth engine that we will go really deep in one of the first workshops inside the Master Soul Business Accelerator membership and mastermind program that you might be part of the waitlist or you might be interested in joining, okay? So launch growth engine is designed to monetize your warm audiences. How you typically do this in the best way? So first thing that typically you want to do here is that you are either selling mid or high dollar programs, mid or high dollar programs. So sometimes this is called mid ticket, high ticket, but for sure when you're doing launches, you're not promoting something that's less than $100. prime the best possible examples of programs that you can beautifully launch to your email list and social media followers is, for example, an online course that is around $500. Or it can be a certification that's $10,000 a year. So anything above, let's say $500 and above, that's a sweet spot for pricing. Now, when I say launch, I don't necessarily mean introduce a brand new product or program or service. By launch, we simply mean marketing to promoting to your warm audiences, your email list and social media followers, a mid-dollar or high-dollar program. And it can be your existing product. Doesn't have to be a new, right? So very important distinction here. This model is also perfect for actually introducing and launching a brand new online course, for example, or a membership or a certification or any type of done with you, done for you service. But it's not just for launching new stuff. It's perfect also for, in a way, relaunching, remarketing, re-promoting on a consistent basis your best selling or your best programs, okay? So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing that I already mentioned is this is perfect for monetizing your email list and social media followers, okay? Very important. Now, if you're watching this, very likely you already have an email list to some, at least some size, and ideally some social media followers. Now, you will see, once you understand the growth engine number 2, which is the evergreen engine, we'll get into that in just a minute, you will see how important this launch engine really is. Now, let's zoom out. Before we go into the specifics, how this really works. So imagine you have a yearly calendar. This is a really simplified version. So let's do this. So we have something like this. So imagine these are quarters, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. So this here would be, imagine, January, and then this here would be a December, and then this would be March, and so forth. So these are months, as you can see here. Again, apology for my lack of my artistic talent here, okay? Now, typically how you want to approach these launches is that, again, as a general rule of thumb, you want to do at least one big launch every quarter. So imagine, let's say every quarter you do one big launch. So imagine something like this. It can be also like this, for example, right? So that's a general rule of thumb. And this is specifically important once you ignite engine number 2, which is the evergreen engine. Typically, the more resources you invest into the other growth engine that we will cover here, okay, the more frequently you want to be doing these launches, to the point where ideally, the bigger your list size and social media following, then it is not unusual to do one launch or a promotion that resembles a launch every month, as you can see here. Okay, this is, by the time you reach this point, you already have a team, you already have some assistance, some help on the team that can help you actually implement and execute and action all these things. But that's how at the highest level it works. Now, if we go a little bit deeper, a typical, so now let's zoom out in one specific month. So imagine now, this is now 1 month, and let's assume that 1 month has, let's say, 4 weeks, right? And these are the days. So typically how you would do this launch is to your entire email list, you would actually not market or promote your actual paid product that you're trying to sell. But instead, typically you would promote a free online experience. Typically, this would be something called a webinar. You can call it a web class, you can call it a workshop, you can call it an online training, but typically it's something that's for free, and it's at least 30 to 90 minutes in length, right? So again, this model has been perfected for gazillions of years. It still works, by the way. It still works magically when you assemble all these pieces together. And how essentially it works is that, let's say, this is just an example. Imagine, this is really like one simple, imagine here on Sunday, let's say one of the Sundays you do a free webinar. This webinar, by the way, can be either a live experience where you actually show up live on a Zoom call, or it can as well be a pre-recorded webinar that can even be delivered for on-demand watching that people can choose when they want to watch it, okay? And then you go to your email list and to your social media following with something called the invite sequence. So this invite sequence, imagine, is a series of, let's say, 5 to 7 content pieces and emails on different topics and different angles related to this specific free webinar here. And you are sending these emails out and post on social media to invite people to reserve their spot and watch this free web class here. So very important here, when you're implementing and getting this launch engine up and running, very important, you are not selling to your entire list anything. So you're not even mentioning your paid product to your entire list. What you're doing is you are promoting a free online training or a web class or a webinar. I don't like the name webinar. I recommend you call it web class, workshop, something along those lines, activation, group meditation, whatever it is. So you are promoting this to your entire list. It's a free program. That's also very important because you want to nurture your email list. If you continue banging your email list with paid offers, this is not healthy because people will be unsubscribing, the list growth will shrink and will even be a negative, right? Which is not where you want to be. And then, in an essence, when people actually watch the webinar or the web class, on this web class, you deliver some amazing value. You've seen this, you experienced this multiple times. And then towards the end of the session, you introduce your offer, your paid offer, which again should be something mid-ticket, something $500, let's say $300, $397, $497 or more. Okay, it can as well be $10,000 program, like we've done this multiple times. In fact, the higher you price it, the better. Okay, very, very interesting tip. And then after this web class, in a way, once people have watched or accessed the web class, then you go into something that you could call offer sequence. Offer sequence is basically some people also call it sales sequence. Sales sequence, this is where you actually go a little bit more proactive and you sell to these people who have registered for the web class. Now, very, very important. In this, when you're sending out invite emails, so let's say this is invite emails, I as an invite. You're sending this to entire email list, okay? And all these things have one thing in common. You are actually promoting something that's free. You're promoting free stuff here. And you're promoting this to entire list with one simple intention. What you want to capture with this is you want to capture interest or intent, and you want to capture the recency. So a general rule of thumb is when you go to sell something to somebody, you ideally only want to sell to people who meet 2 criteria. They have expressed interest in the topic and they have done so recently. So interest and recency, right? So anyone who have opted in and signed up for your free web class on something like transforming your body with healthy nutrition, these people who have registered and signed up for this free web class are a prime audience that you want to offer your paid program that offers something related to nutrition and perhaps building a body and fitness and so forth, right? So some distinctions here. That's how, in an essence, it works. Now, and then you actually repeat the same process basically, let's say, at least once a quarter. And again, as you start running the second growth engine, which is the evergreen growth engine, then you will need and want to be doing these launches a little bit more frequently. Again, it's not unusual to do one launch every month, right? Very important. So at my times at Mindvalley and Solvana, we were actually doing, now, yes, you will hear this right, we were actually doing 2 launches every single month. So every 2 weeks there was a launch. We went to our email list, and we promoted a free masterclass or a webinar or a web class. Now, very important, at that time we had multiple different courses that we could market and sell. So we were not always promoting the same web class that sells the same course. Very, very important. So all these web classes were always on different topics, on different themes, and they were always typically selling a different program, right? So that's how the launch engine works. So to summarize, launch engine is extremely important because it helps you monetize your warm audiences like email list and social media followers that you attracted and acquired with the help of the other growth engine, which is the evergreen engine, which is where we go right now. Now, there's also one important dynamic in the launch model here. is that since you can be using some of the some paid advertising in this, but since the primary source of customers that come and participate and then come out of this launch is actually your email list and your social media followers, by that nature you're not spending any or a lot of money on paid advertising. You can still retarget people, your email list contacts with paid ads, but generally speaking, paid advertising will not be a large expense in launches, right? Typically, as a general rule of thumb, even if you run ads, the paid ads will represent typically less than 10% of total revenue that you would generate during the launch, right? Very important. So what this means is that these launchers are also almost, you can imagine them as profit maximizers, because when you launch something to your email list and you generate $100,000 or $200,000 from this launch, you don't have a lot of expenses with advertising, and even if you have them, they are relatively small compared to the cash and the revenue that you generated. Hopefully this makes sense. Now let's go now to the second growth engine, which is equally important, and we will call this engine evergreen engine. Evergreen. Now, if the launch engine is designed to monetize your existing warm audiences, your email list and social media followers, then this growth engine is designed to reach new people, to reach and attract new people, what in the marketing realms we would call cold audience. Cold audience are not some frozen people. They are simply, that's just a term to describe basically strangers who do not know you yet, who do not trust you yet, who have never experienced your work yet. So that's why we call them cold audiences, because they might be a little bit more reserved, they might be a little more skeptical, because simply they do not know you yet. So this engine is designed to attract cold audience. And there are actually two primary ways to get this engine up and running. My favorite, absolutely favorite, the fastest one is paid ads. You've seen this on Instagram, you've seen this on Facebook, you've seen this on YouTube, paid advertisements basically chasing you everywhere you go. But paid ads is absolutely my favorite way to generate new leads, attract new customers, and get new customers through the door of your business, okay? And then the other one, which I would simplify, is, let's call this social media content. So imagine you posting stuff on Instagram, you creating long format videos on YouTube. All these things are actually designed to attract and reach new people. And these two engines have their own pros and cons. For example, social media usually takes a little bit longer time. For example, it might take months for you to really start getting some traction, but it does not cost that much in terms of money to actually get it up and running. You still need to invest some money, perhaps software, people, video editing, and so forth, but generally, and time, of course, it takes a lot of time to create content and energy and effort. These are the benefits and the pros and cons, but the pros of paid ads is speed. Once you have your first funnel up and running, I mean, you can literally go from $500 in revenue a day to $5,000 in revenue a day in a matter of weeks. Like not technically, you can even do it in a matter of days, but when you follow specific framework, how you optimize, test ads, it takes some time, but it's really fast. You can really scale really fast. Once you kind of nail the model and the unit economics, then the biggest challenge in scaling ads is actually not making numbers work for you, but it's actually more on operations side of things, like more support requests, like more people needed. So all these things come into place. Now, Evergreen, going back to Evergreen, it's designed to help you reach more people. This is actually where you create growth. This is where you basically attract more people. This is where you expand your business. So by the nature, if you continue only doing this stuff here, only launches, you're only almost, in a quote, milking an existing cow, right? So, and that cow has limited amount of milk, right? So this is one perhaps analogy. So what you want is, perhaps this is not the best analogy, but you basically want to have more amazing healthy cows that are happy to give you more milk, right? So, and you use the evergreen engine to do so, right? So that's one example of how it works. Now, another very, very important part about the growth engine is that, and this is where both engines really come together and why they are so important. So regardless of which of these two engines you will use, I recommend you actually go start with paid ads here, because it's the fastest to get things up and running. This is specifically if you already have, let's say, at least one or two virtual assistants or some help on financial resources that you can hire people, okay? This is where you want to start, because you can really, really, really accelerate the growth of your mission, how many people you help, and also obviously your business, okay? Now, the most important part in the context of this video is the following, is regardless of which funnel you use for evergreen, you will always be generating leads, right? So there are typical funnels would be, imagine when you sell on an evergreen funnel, for example, one funnel is, let's say, when you sell a low dollar info product with a simple funnel straight from the ad directly to the, let's call it VSL sales page, right? So, and then people directly buy. So there's no lead generation, there's no like free lead magnets, there's no web classes. You just get people directly to the VSL and you're driving impulsive purchases. And then here you have something called order bumps, you have something called instant one-click upsells. You've seen this multiple times for sure. But what's most important part, that typically in this funnel you will use something called a two-step order form. You've seen this multiple times. When on the first step, when people land on a sales page, the first step is simply they enter their first name and email address, and then they click next. And then on the next step of the form, on the second step, they actually enter their billing information, right? So what's happening here is you are generating leads. So those people who submit the step one of your two-step order form, you will be generating leads. And out of this people, roughly 25 to 35% of them will actually complete the purchase, right? So almost this is equivalent like in e-commerce, add to cart, right? When people add a product to cart, very similar, they initiate the checkout, but some of them purchase and the vast majority of them don't purchase, but you still generated email leads. Very important, and you will see where I'm getting with this. Now, another model could also be what's called the web class model. So this, to your cold audience with ads and social media, you would actually first advertise very similar, a free web class, a free training, a free lead magnet, a free lead magnet that gives amazing value to your cold audience and then ultimately leads to a paid offer. Again, you are generating leads here, okay? Leads. So when you're generating leads here, you are also growing your email list, right? And now this is where we're going to this part, how these two growth engines are connected. You can see here, right? So as you're running your evergreen engine, you are also not only generating sales and attracting customers, but you are generating even higher amounts of leads that come in that express interest in what you have to offer. Now, another very important part when it comes to evergreen is like regardless of which of the funnels you will use, let's say a low dollar info product or a web class funnel or a lead magnet funnel, what will inevitably happen, okay, is that you will actually, out of 100, let's say, leads that you generate, you will typically have, and again, this is just general rule of thumb, you will have 3 to 5 people buying, okay? So the conversion rates typically here, again, this is average across all funnels, is somewhere between 3 to 5%. Again, if you're running a low dollar funnel with an instant VSL and sales page, this might be actually 30%. But if you're running a lead magnet, this might be 5%, right? So 3 to 5%, somewhere like that, which means that out of 100 people that you will actually, 100 leads that will actually enter your funnel and get closer to the checkout page, is that you will actually convert into customers. Let's simplify, 5 of them, right? But what's interesting, 95% of these 100 leads that you generated will not buy and purchase yet. And this is again where we go into this growth engine, right? So imagine this. You invest so much of your time and resources and money to run ads, to do social media, to generate all these leads that come in, right? And obviously you want to turn as many of them immediately into paid customers, because this also then offsets the advertising spend. It helps your cash flow. We will not go into this, another deep rabbit hole. But ultimately, the most important part here is that the vast majority of leads that you will generate in this evergreen funnel will not yet buy within the first 14 or 30 days. So this begs the question, what do you do with them, right? And here's where everything connects, right? That's why you want to have this consistent, let's call them the launch calendar. So the moment these leads that you attracted and generated through Evergreen Engine, they're no longer in those automations and automated follow-up sequences. This is usually roughly 7 to 14 days after they opted in here on the Evergreen funnel. Let's say after 14 days, you simply add them. This is a simple explanation. You add them to your master list, and from then that point onwards, they are included in all your launches. Here's also very important now, another thing to wrap the whole thing out, why these two engines are so essentially important to be running together is typically when you run, let's say, when you run ads, for example, or even when you do social media, what you want to have, it will cost you money. It will cost, specifically if you run ads, the biggest expense will be paid advertising. So ideally, the goal and the objective, this is a minimum objective, is that you are at least breaking even, meaning on Evergreen, that if you invest, let's say, $50,000 a month in paid ads, that you get back at least $50,000 after chargebacks and refunds just from the sales of these low dollar products or whatever you're selling here in the Evergreen. This is called, you liquidate the ad spend, you recover the ad spend. So you basically return, you have a positive return. Now you might not be generating profit, that's okay, right? You want to be ideally, but even if you're not generating profit, even if you are just breaking even here on the Evergreen, you still generated a lot of leads. You still indoctrinated a lot of customers into your ecosystem. People who are now watching, consuming your content, and all these people will then be also eventually included in your launch model, where you basically profit and where you maximize the revenue without any additional advertising expense. So now, hopefully, this makes sense. So to recap, you want to start ideally in 90% of cases, regardless of where you are right now as a business. You might be at $10,000 a month, or you might be at $5,000 a month, or if you might be already at $20, $30, $50, $100,000 a month. What you want to start with is you want to start building first this engine and at least do 1 or 2 first launches to get some energy moving, in other words, to generate some revenue, generate some cash, and then reinvest some of this cash and revenue into then gradually building your Evergreen Engine, where you really create growth for your business. So in other words, the Evergreen Engine is an engine that creates growth. Growth as defined, it helps you reach more people, expand the business. The Launch Engine is what helps you maintain profitability. So both of these are important: growth, profit. Profitable growth, right? Or growing profitably. So here you go. Now, very important, in Master Soul, we are going deep into both of these two growth engines. And because the Launch Engine is the most important to start with and get it up and running well enough, doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be every month. It can be every 3 months for now, or first launch in the next, let's say, 1 month, because this launch is the most important. We will start your journey in Master Soul will very likely start with this particular topic, launch. And there's an amazing workshop and in-depth training with a lot of resources and action steps and my business advisory and mentorship on the topic, what we call the $100 million launch playbook. This is what you will learn in Master Soul. We will go so deep into this playbook. It's a playbook. Literally, I've personally done probably 50 plus or even 100 plus such product launches from my times at Mind Valley. Sometimes I told you, sometimes I was doing at Solvana. There was a crazy time when I was doing one launch a week, every week. This was the craziest. This was also the closest to the burnout. But anyways, this is where we start. And the reason why this playbook is called $100 million launch playbook, because literally this playbook has generated, and I'm saying this in a humble way, very conservative, over $100 million in sales. In fact, this engine brought, just the launch engine brought Mind Valley to $1 billion brand. Okay, so that's why the first thing we start here in the Master Soul, and then over time you will also learn the evergreen and everything in between. Thank you so much. It was an honor sharing this with you. I would love to get your feedback, your questions that you might have, and the best way to share your questions, simply please comment here below. And if you want more content on this, just let me know. Happy to create, serve you, be by your side, and helping you take your, not only your business, but also your positive social impact on humanity to all new heights. Thank you so much, and may the force be with you. Goodbye.